السلام عليكم أعزائي طلبة المرحلة الثالثة قسم الترجمة. في درسنا اليوم عن primary and secondary school sources for the course of writing research. The title of this lecture is primary and secondary sources. Usually your teachers will ask you to collect 5 to 10 sources to support your writing research, and you'll ask yourself, what do you mean by sources? Are these only books or what? We are going to discover and to learn something about what to mean by the word source in this lecture. The outline of this lecture is what do we mean by sources, why do we use sources, and then classification of sources. We have a primary sources and secondary ones, uses of sources, and all the sources we are going to gather to collect to use, are all of them are reliable or not. Primary sources. We have 3 types of primary sources. We have literary works, novels, as mirrors of the times they were written, and we have scientific inquiries, and we have historical artifacts. It is important to know that primary sources means sources that have been written for the first time. So we are going to call them raw sources, authentic sources, like novels written by or plays written by the original writers. We are going to call them primary sources. The main manuscript, we call it. We have scientific experiments, means that generate empirical evidence in experiments done in laboratories by scientists, and they're writing their handouts about them. And we have historical artifacts, documents, manuscripts that are the direct legacies of the past. For example, literary works. You see that we have fictions, novels, we have non-fictions, we have folklores, we have drama, we have poets, we have shorter stories, we have poems written by poets. These are called the primary sources. Or we have a plays. For example, you see in front of you, we have Hamlet written by Shakespeare. We are going to call the main play is the written one. We are going to call it raw, authentic, primary source. For the scientific inquiries, we said we have experiments done inside the laboratories, and we call usually scientists and workers in the laboratories. They're going to write what a handout for their experiments, and to publish them in order to be authentic, reliable. We have historical artifacts, discoveries related to the past time, done by anthropologists, by historians, in order to discover, to find out the new discoveries, new evidence for the life of the past people. We are going to call them primary sources. Okay. For the secondary sources, see, I'm calling them, these sources are going to be called interpretive, and they're going to call them analytical. Why? Because we are going to interpret, to analyze, to examine the play written by Shakespeare, Hamlet, or the poem written by a famous poet, etc. So these primary sources are going to define as works that interpret, criticize, analyze primary sources. Second, what are the examples? For example, scholarly articles, historical commentaries, see, related to historical artifacts, documentary films related to experiment, to discoveries, etc. The purpose of using secondary sources to provide context, to provide discussion, to provide implication, and to offer insights. Okay, for the primary sources, because not all people are able to read, to analyze, to understand the primary sources. We need people who are going to analyze, to discuss, to simplify these primary ones in order to be handed and to be tangible by the ordinary people, ordinary readers. Example of secondary sources, see, these are articles, scientific articles, papers written by scholars, written by for example, your supervisor, written by your staff member of your department, and we have documentary films. Usually, we see that we watch documentary films about characters, about historical episode, about an event, and they are going to what within these documentary films they are going to explain, to give the point of view of the agency, to give the point of view of the director of the film. Uses of sources. Why we use sources? Number one, we use them to add analytical support. Secondary sources provide depth to the understanding of primary data. As I said earlier, not all of us are able to read, to understand, to get what the original writer wants or wanted to do, or to state in his writing. So we need what? We need other people who are going to analyze, to give, to provide deep analysis of the primary source. Also, the other use of sources is to assess, to evaluate. We have some writers, some scholars who are able to critically examine, to assess, to state the importance of the primary sources, whether they are important or not, because not all of the primary sources are important. Therefore, we have famous playwrights like Shakespeare, of course, accompanied by what? By many playwrights at his age. Extended narratives, to extend, to give another deep critical reading of the primary source. Create broader narratives means that to connect individual pieces of the primary sources in order to be one unique one, can be read by other readers. We have using sources correctly. Why we should use sources correctly? Number one, to strengthen credibility. Use reliable sources like historical documents, scientific research, newspaper articles, and first-hand interviews. These will increase the credibility, the reliability, the power of your work. Second, to avoid random searches. By focusing or using correct use of sources, you are able to be direct to the browsing of internet, instead of being of searching, random searching, and browsing into or searching. Now we are going to look for specific keywords in the library catalogs or in the internet in order to reach to the secondary sources, and then these secondary sources will help us to read what to the primary sources. Consult experts. We also, using sources can help us to consult, to connect, to be directly connected to the original writers if they are available, they're still alive. Or you can also use the secondary sources and to examine them with your teachers, with your supervisors, with your friends. So reference works by recognized authorities, often cited by others. The other four correct uses of sources are: to verify author's credentials. You need, when you got a secondary source, to check the biographical reference of the author, to check the database, like complementary authors' biographies, or who's who. These are available online. You need to look for what? For the authors. By the way, this speech is going to be reliable, to be correct for those who are interested not only in translation studies, but all students who are really interested in writing research. Also, we need to analyze sources agendas to understand whether the mission of the writer, the mission of the translator, is it related to his individual ideology, to his individual point of view, interest, or it is related to the agency he's working in. So we need, by looking, studying, checking other extra secondary sources, we can understand what is the mission of the original writer. And to interpret endorsement, it means that we use sources to cite of course, without a disclaimer may imply agreement with its perspective. It doesn't mean that when we cite a reference, it doesn't mean that we agree with that person 100%. No, we are just citing the reference, citing his ideas, and we have the right later, if we are going to be more reading, we have more reading about the topic, or much reading, we are going to understand, to see, or to state our point of view. Also, website sponsors tip, locate the sponsor information by what? By looking. Writing using resources correctly will help us to be more searching. We have more searching ability in the internet by what? By getting the ability, by getting the knowledge of the tips that can help us to get to the sources correctly, directly, without spending much time on what? On searching for here and there. Types of reliable sources. You see, we have different types of reliable sources. So when your supervisor asks you to look for sources, you should know that sources are going to be classified into reliable and unreliable. Reliable means that can be taken for granted, that these are good resources. For example, books written by scholars. We have periodical articles written by scholars. We have thesis dissertation by students. We have handbooks published by enterprise or by academic authorities, and we have dictionaries and encyclopedias. These are the main 5 reliable sources that you will search in when you're going to write your research project. So first of all, you are going to look for books. You are going to look for periodical, for articles. Maybe your supervisor will help you in this point, saying that Dr. X in our department has published a paper in this topic, and you can consult him to get this paper and to read it, or that researcher can give you extra details, extra documents, extra data that can enrich your work. Also, you can ask, you can consult thesis, dissertation written by students in your department, since you are going to write about topics, projects in translation. So we have in our department many theses, many dissertations, many excellent students. You can consult them in order to get what? To get much references, much pieces of information or data from them. Also, we have handbooks published by, for example, Oxford University, by Rutledge, etc., etc., institutes, academic the authorities, etc. We have dictionaries and encyclopedias. Also, in our department, we have many dictionaries, many encyclopedias. You can consult them, and all of these 5 are going to be called reliable sources. Types of semi-reliable sources. For example, podcasts, and we have Wikipedia, and we have YouTube videos. By the way, since we are going to write research project based on APA 7th edition as a citing style, these are now can be cited. So we are going to call them semi-reliable. It means that the podcast, YouTube videos, and Wikipedias, these are related, or they express the idea of the speaker, not for example, officially stated related to the idea of the person who wrote the book, or etc. Types of unreliable sources: blogs, commercial books. These are not reliable books. Even comments in Facebook, and you see the comments we got in Instagram, these are not reliable sources, since they are not published, since they have no year of publication, since there is no institute taking these things into consideration and to discipline in academic or scientific way. So we have reliable sources, we have semi-reliable sources, and we have unreliable sources. Thank you very much for this lecture.